I think we're live now. All right. No, I haven't paid attention, to be honest. Now, I did, I'm just pulling this off of John Gale's show. He played that recording of Ted Cruz, and he played the recording of, the guy getting on him about going over his time limit. And the first thought I had was, that's why I couldn't be a politician right there. I can't stand... let me fix my camera here. I can't stand how we hold these politicians to time limits. Now, I know some of them will go on and talk forever if we didn't. But to give a guy 2 minutes to get a point across, and we do this in our elections. We do this when we have presidential debates.
The debates.
Yeah, and I can't stand it. Because you don't... Echo Eric. But you don't get the full, you just don't know what they're about. You don't. They can lie. They can, they don't have to study for anything really. Hell, they never answer a question directly anyway. Let alone, do it within 2 minutes. This is why I say every debate we have, that's all right. Every debate we have should be like 4 or 5 hours long. And people are going to be like, no one's going to watch that. That's fine. The news will go through and get all the recordings for you. Hell, they'll take care of that. But I want to know they have the stamina to be able to do that. And I also want to know what they have to say. I want them to elaborate. And absolutely. I think that all the questions should not be chosen by a moderator. I think when they get their questions, they get it from, outside people sometimes. But I think they should go down a list of hell, I don't know, some kind of live feed now that we have that technology, and answer questions from there. Directly from the people. Instead of having some fucking news organization run the debate and pick out what questions they want to ask everyone. Because as we've seen in the past, if it's Fox News hosting the debate, unless it was Megyn Kelly, we saw how that went with Trump in the first time, but for the most part, if it was Fox News, they're going to favor the Republican candidate, and vice versa with CNN. Make that shit 4 or 5 hours long, and make them sit up there and elaborate. Say you have a minimum of two minutes. A minimum of 2 minutes to elaborate on this question. And if they don't answer it, then the moderator should say, you didn't answer the question. You didn't answer the question. You still haven't answered the question, and push them to answer the fucking question until they say, either answer it or they say, I don't know. That's how it should be. Because here's what you're going to get. Either they're going to deny to answer it, which no one will like. They're going to elaborate if they know what they're talking about, which is good. Or they're going to say, I don't know, which is good too. I wish more of them said they didn't know. Being president isn't one of these things where you got to have all this experience and know everything when you get there. People, I think, have this misconception about that. No. They're going to go and hire the people they think is best, unless you're Joe fucking Biden, who just hires them based on their skin color. For the most part, they're at least going to hire the people they think are best and are loyal to them and are going to follow their agenda. But you don't have Joe Biden, well, hell, I don't know, but you didn't have Trump or you didn't have these other guys going in there and making military tactical decisions. No, they have advisors for that shit. So, But that's where so I wanted to talk about misinformation. And that's where it starts. Part of misinformation, in my opinion, not only is getting out wrong information, but it's withholding information. And when we have our debates, when we go to elect people, the way the debates are set up and the way that questioning is set up, for the Supreme Court justice now, we withhold it by not allowing them to elaborate and not allowing the people that are questioning her to actually question her. And then we fucking interrupt them when we don't like the line of questioning. Look, I'm not a big Ted Cruz guy, okay? I'm not. I think I like him. It's not that I don't like him. I'm just not a huge, he's just whatever. But don't, if Ted Cruz is asking a question, good question or not, it's his time. Don't interrupt him. And then don't, accuse him of breaking the rules, especially a rule as stupid as that 2-minute rule or whatever it is. And you're doing the same thing. You're just interrupting him. You see, and I know in our Constitution, I think, maybe Raccoon knows this, I don't know, but he's pretty good with the Constitution. I think I've seen before where, they can be censored. And we know they can be censored, obviously. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying I think that's actually in the Constitution where, the House can choose to censor other members of the House. I think that's stupid. Censure, whatever it is. I think that's stupid. We voted them in not to fucking have them censored. All right? Don't censor look, if the people of Alabama or the people of Georgia or Tennessee or New York or whoever voted someone in, don't censor that candidate. You're silent. Because when you do, you're basically silencing that state's opinion. I don't care how stupid it is. Hell, half of them are stupid. They all have dumbass opinions. They all say stupid things. They all do stupid things. They're all corrupt. But they're still voted in by the populace, not by you. They weren't voting in by the House of Representatives. Or the Senate did not vote these people in. The people of the state voted them in. Don't censor anyone. I wish we had fist fights on the floor, honestly. Because at least we know they're passionate about things. What'd you say?
That'll be the day.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
I bet you there have been. Absolutely, I bet you there's been.
You know where you also talked about, like, you could never be a politician in the sense of being a member of the House or the Senate, is like if you had been on that committee, grilling like a potential nominee for the Supreme Court, whether you like that person or not, and then you would have like the chairman like interrupting you over your line of questioning. I know you would probably be just tempted to cuss him out.
I would have just told him to shut the fuck up.
Go F yourself and what have you.
Well, like, I wouldn't have immediately just said that, right? I've been like, hold on, let me finish. I have a question to ask you. You're going to let me finish. Like Ted Cruz is doing, but then eventually when he kept going on with it, I was going to be like, dude, can you shut the fuck up and let me ask the fucking question? Well, that's how they need to talk.
Yeah, and I think if you were on that committee and Dick Durbin was interrupting you, I think you would probably be smart to call him out on that he's not playing by his own rules.
But that's the thing. The rules are stupid. I understand you have to have certain rules. Mm-hmm. I get that. And I know they want to get around and ask everyone questions. Here's what they should have. And they may already do this. I don't know. Because, again, I haven't paid attention to this whole thing. They should have, 4 people that ask questions. 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. Bam, that's it. And then you have the top guy, whoever that is, like you just said, right? The moderator that is just there for whatever reason, but he doesn't ask questions, or she doesn't ask questions. You have 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and for 3 days they go on, they ask them, however long the shit takes, you go on, you ask questions. And you allow them to talk. Now, the other thing I don't get, and this is why I would be nervous to go up in front of the Senate, because I was, for whatever reason, right? It didn't have to be for a specific reason, but I was thinking, I'm like, man, they do ask some hard questions. Mm-hmm. They do. There's no doubt about it. I'm not a person. I don't have this giant vocabulary, and I think that's a big problem with a lot of our politicians. Is they use these legal terms. A lot of them are lawyers, and they use these big words, and I think that a lot of people just misunderstand it. That's why I think Trump was so popular among a lot of people. Was he was simple. He was really simple. Exactly. He didn't use a lot of big words, which is fine. You can call me an idiot, whatever. I don't really like big words. I never really have. And sometimes there isn't a need for it. I think a lot of times big words are just there to sound better. But there's not a need for them, right? I think more people would understand political stuff if we didn't make it so complicated when these people get up there and talk. And it's not their fault. That's just they're very, a lot of them are very intelligent, and they've gone through, law school, and they've gone or whatever, and they are used to using these words. But when you're talking to me or when you're questioning someone, to be on the Supreme Court or whatever, you don't have to do that. Then John Gale said, allow her to answer. Yes, let her answer the questions. And you should mark down every time she doesn't answer a question directly. And they should score her on that.
Right.
But if questions need to be asked, so I don't know, Eric, maybe you do. How many people go through and ask questions? It's obviously not the whole Senate, but it's probably someone along that committee that does the approvals.
That sounds about right, but you're right about like the majority of like members of the House and Senate being lawyers, but and I know my friend Jeremy, like you might know him from Podbean, you might not, but the best word he described for lawyers is that they go to school for 4 years to be trained to be paid professional lawyers.
Yeah. A lawyer.
If that makes any sense.
Look, you need lawyers. Lawyers are a necessity. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Much like doctors.
But there are certain roles that lawyers can take on.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think of it like this, and look. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in the United States. All right, at least that's how it should be.
And people seem to forget that.
Yeah, they do, and I know Raccoon's gonna chime in on that. But hear me out, Raccoon. I know what you're about to say. Okay, but that's legally that's how it should work. Okay, and then you have everyone's entitled to a defendant or a defense, right? That's why we have public defenders in case you can't afford an attorney.
Due process.
Exactly, and a lot of those people that are getting those public defenders or the defendant are guilty of something. But the attorney that's defending them still has to defend them. Think about that. Now you can go two ways. You can just try and expose the truth, which is I believe how they should do it, or you can go the way of like the Rittenhouse prosecutors where they were trying to freaking lie and make them out, and they just lied about shit. It can't be easy being a defense attorney when you know someone's guilty. But some of them could go down the corrupt avenue too because they're not defending necessarily someone who broke a law like out in the street selling drugs. They're defending these big corporations too that are doing some fucked up shit. But these same people...
Or they know something about the system that other people might not.
Yeah. And I think this is not... Look, I'm not an attorney. I have respect for attorneys. But I feel like...
My sister-in-law's an attorney.
Yeah, it's good profession. But don't you think that attorneys are like the definition of nepotism? Have you ever seen the attorney businesses? Half of them are all fucking run by brothers or, 3 generations of attorneys. Like, you have...
it's who you know.
Key, and Key, my grandfather, the dad, and then me. Like, it's nepotism at its finest. And this is the same thing with our politicians. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but I did. And you know what? Good for them. That's fine. But...
Hey, Mike.
Go ahead.
Something you have to remember now is if you're in Congress, you cannot have an active law license because the Constitution requires you to not be of a law background. That's why we have people like AOC in there who steps on her face every time she says something because she has no understanding of anything anybody's saying and she just blurts crap out. Mm. A lot of the lawyers that are what we used to call lawyers, a lot of them in the Congress have had their law license revoked because they got caught in all kinds of bribery schemes and shit like that.
Oh, I don't doubt it. And I think
some of them aren't disbarred, Eric. Some of them have been basically put in retirement. Mm-hmm. And when they get out, a lot of them will go back into a law system or they'll become a person in charge, like they'll start up a law practice, but you'll never hear of them ever going to court to do anything for anybody. They're just there to reap in the rewards. It's all about corruption. You're considered dead when you walk into the courtroom. You have to have somebody talk for you unless the, the judge asks you to speak.
Well, you can represent
That's
yourself.
something.
It's just not smart.
But no, depending on what you're doing or why you're there, depends on whether or not you can defend yourself.
Well, there was a guy the other, not long ago, a couple months ago, that I think he was on a murder trial, and he defended himself. Now he got found
Did
guilty.
he win?
No, he was guilty, but he was guilty as shit anyway.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
It was obvious he was guilty. I mean, I will say though, the lawyer did tell him, because he was like, there's a big video. It's all over YouTube. You can go look it up. He made this passionate, defense argument and everything, and the lawyer goes, it's a shame you messed up because you probably could have been a good lawyer. And it was just this guy from the street. I think he killed some woman or something. He was guilty as shit. And sometimes I think very rarely it has worked out where someone can defend themselves. But you can do that. I mean, it's not.
You can do it, but chances are you won't win because the system is set against you because of the maritime law system. They encroached on us. It's from the Brit. It's not American constitutional law. It's British law.
Mm-hmm.
In Britain, you're guilty to proven innocent, and that's the same way it is here. If you get a ticket, you have to go in and prove your innocence, because until then, you're going to pay the fine. So you're guilty to proven innocent, even if you were totally right. And they may have stomped all over your constitutional rights, but then you'd have to go and sue them so you can benefit from them beating up on your constitutional rights. You see, the whole system is rigged against us. We're just pawns on the chessboard, and they're going to take your money in any way they can find until you can actually beat them at their own game, which doesn't happen that often because they're considered to be right. Your word will not stand up if you have a corrupt policeman in there who's been talked with the judge many times on other cases. Chances are you won't win. It's a high probability you won't win because they'll take his word because he is a cop, even though he might be a corrupt cop. I mean, we don't have a law system in the United States. It's more like a penalization system where they just come around and take a little bit more of your money out of your pocket, and then they tell you shut up and go about your way.
Yeah. Look, I've spoke on the law system, in my opinion, about this, and it may not even be all that much of a conservative opinion. I don't know. I think it's more just a human being kind of opinion. I think there are flaws. I think we have a great legal system if it's run how it's supposed to be run, which it's not, right? If we start implementing profit into it and money into it, that's when it's not very good. And that's when you go down the road like raccoon stain.
That's why I said, Mike, we were founded under constitutional law of the land, which means nothing anymore to most every judge and lawyer.
So,
okay, but right now it's getting to be more prevalent that they're going to constitutional because a lot of these corrupt bastards are being pulled out and they're being sanctioned or they're being thrown in jail or sent home with their tail between their legs, wondering what they did wrong because they were playing the game the way they were forced to play it. Our legal system has been screwed ever since they started it.
Yeah.
That was in 1871 when they allowed them, because before then you rarely ever seen a judge and a jury and lawyers and prosecutors unless you murdered somebody, robbed a bank, or done something high crimes and misdemeanors. Other than that, you got your ass whipped, or you got drugged behind a horse, or they tarred and feathered you and sent you out on a rail. They let the people make the sentence up for the misdemeanors like thieving. And in Saudi Arabia, they cut your freaking arm off or your hand off. And if you do it again, then you're picking your nose with your wrist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's the way they did over there. But over here, they didn't do that. They would just either humiliate you or they would tar and feather you and send you out. And a lot of politicians back in the day were tarred and feathered and sent out on rails. They would just take them out to the railway track, put them on a daggone pumper car and tell them to get out of there. And if, you know, they got the wax or the tar and feathers off of them, they went somewhere else and pulled their crap. But they never went back to that town because the people ruled the town, and the town told them what the daggone punishment was. But now it's a legal system that is foiled against us.
Yeah. I had something there I was going to say about it. Oh, look, and I've said this plenty of times, okay? Our Constitution is there to, it gives rights to the people and limits the government. The laws in the Constitution, if you read them, are against the government, not the people. Okay? Nothing in the Constitution limits the people. It only says what the government can't impose on to the people. Right? The right to bear arms, the right to freedom of speech.
And
the right
so
to
does
all
our
that
Bill
stuff.
of Rights.
Yeah, well, the Bill of
So
Rights
does
is the
our
first
Bill
10
of
amendments. The
Rights.
Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments of the Constitution.
But it says on there that the government cannot impinge on those rights, and they do it all the time.
Well, it tells you in the articles and in the Declaration of Independence, too, I believe, you know, we are given inalienable rights, which means that they can never be taken away. Never.
But they're trying. Every day they try to, though, Mike.
Well, they modify
them. They don't
them.
care.
They modify them, right? They
modify it against what the original wording is.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Second Amendment, or right now with the First Amendment. There's places where you can't speak your mind or they'll arrest you. Even though you have that freedom, they say, no, you can't do that here. And your words are not judged by what words you use or how you use them, but they'll arrest you anyway.
Well, like, think about this. Is a Senate hearing a court of law? No.
Not really.
It's not, right? I don't believe it's even considered that.
If it was, a whole bunch of people would be in jail for perjury and everything else.
But I want you to think about this. If, let's say, Ted Cruz did what I said I would have done and told that dude to shut the fuck up, they probably would have held him in contempt. Right?
Oh, they would have tried to. But they wouldn't have done anything. I mean, they don't never do anything.
They would have censored him. They would have done whatever. Well, why can't Ted Cruz say that? Right? Why can't he?
He's trying to, because he doesn't want to rock the boat. He might be even in. You know,
oh, fuck the boat. Go ahead and sink that shit. Fuck that boat.
Wait a minute. We don't know the extent of the corruption because it hasn't all been explained to everybody. Okay? We may find out that 90% of our daggone political system is so corrupt and have done crimes against humanity and high crimes and misdemeanors with bribes and favors and everything else.
Find out. We found out a long time ago.
Cruz might be one of them.
We know this.
Yeah, but Cruz might. I know it, but we don't know who they are yet.
Oh, we have pretty good damn idea. You're right. We don't know all of them.
But yeah, and we got a pretty good idea, but we don't have a complete list.
Yeah, and I will say this: look, most of the politicians now there are some good ones, okay, but most of them, most of them are a lot of these politicians they're the kids that ran for school office, like, school president, school vice president, all that shit, right? That's who this is. They're the ones that promised you. Yes. Yeah. These are the people that promised you, free McDonald's on fucking Wednesdays, free vending machines, said that, seniors are going to get a free period and an extended lunch, all those crazy promises, and never did any of that shit. And I don't know about you, John Gale, but maybe they were the smart ones, but they weren't the popular ones necessarily. No one cared about that. What's funny, though, is, so obviously in high school you have student council. But what people don't know is in college you have that too. And when you're on the football team like I was, especially at a big school, they know that, you know, if you can get the backing of the athletes, you can probably win. So we had mat drills. Mat drills, anyone that ever played college sports in here, and maybe sometimes high school, but mat drills is you wake up at 4:30 in the morning, all right, and for an hour you go do, and it's running, but it's all these drills, and it's the hardest workouts that you do normally, and we did it 3 days a week, and you were done by 6 o'clock, 6:30. And it was hard. And all the coach is kind of, you know, it sounds like the freaking Marine Corps in there, because all they do is just yell at you and yell at you and yell at you and yell at you, right? And they used to have a point system. And I don't even know what, it's not, look, the shit sucked, all right? But we were there at 4:30 in the morning. These people wanted the backing of the athletes so bad that they would wake up, the ones running for school council, and they would go and give you a speech before we started our match drill. We would warm up, and then we'd all go sit down, and there would be 3 or 4 of them there that were going and explaining why we should vote for them before we started our workout. What's up, Solid Blue Sister? And I always thought that was funny. I was like, wow, these people are really willing to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go talk to a bunch of football players who's about to go through this shitty workout, you know, and explain to them all the good stuff they're going to do. You know what they did? They never made a damn difference in my life. They never changed nothing about the school. And, you know, very rarely is there anything you are even worried about, especially as an athlete. You kind of just, you're not around campus enough, or you're on campus going to class. But other than that, you're not doing all the activities and everything on campus enough to really care. But those are the people that go and they get into politics. And
welcome to my world, Mike. I've done the same damn thing for 20 years.
Really?
The last 2 years, I didn't have to mess with it. But that's what the Army is right there.
Yeah.
Get up every morning and run PT for 2 hours, and then you get to eat.
Yeah. No, that's how this is. And look, it's nothing like the Army. I want to get that clear. It was just,
well, no,
as
I'm
far
just
as
saying it's the training part. What I'm talking about is the training part.
Oh, yeah. You know? Oh, God. It's, well, see, yeah, when you play
6 miles.
Yeah. We didn't do 6-mile runs. It is a different kind of training than what you do at the military, right? But it was a lot of sprint training and stuff. Yeah. Oh, it sucks.
A lot of the people that I've been around have gone into politics who were officers. Mm-hmm. You know, and they would do the same thing, because I think they learned that at the colleges they went to. So they learned what you would call table drills or mat drills. We called them grass drills.
Mm-hmm. That sounds about right. Yeah. I mean, it's probably similar, honestly, to a lot of stuff that you did in the military, as far as, you know, we always ended it with all the push-ups and sit-ups. Gosh, we did hundreds of them. I mean, and this is only in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. We were doing this at the end after we had already run, you know, the sprinting. It was like short sprints, and we did it actually. So at MTSU, we have our basketball arena, which is a big basketball stadium, and then around the basketball stadium is an indoor track. So you had, we did most of them on the indoor track, and then you also had it on the basketball court in the stadium. So you were running up and down the stairs, and it was 6 stations, about 5 to 6 minutes per station, nonstop. Guys throw up everywhere. It's you know, looking back, I wish I could go back and do it again, right? Because I wish I could go and be a part of that again. But still, and I just brought that up because I just wanted to say that the people that were running for the school councils, or what was it, student councils for college, right? They always came in. They
middle and high school had that too.
Yeah, and they would campaign to us, and you know, right before these workouts, and we're all tired. You know, we're just waking up, and who cares about that, right? But going back to the misinformation, okay, allowing a candidate, or not a candidate, yeah, well, a candidate too, but going, you know, to these hearings, part of the misinformation is not allowing Ketanji Brown Jackson to elaborate her answers, or limiting, you know, the people that are asking her the questions to a time limit, because you're withholding information at that point. You're not allowing it all to come out. Same goes for our campaigns. Next, when it comes to, Dylan Hasselhoff's calling in. I don't think Dylan Hasselhoff has ever called in.
I don't think he has either.
Yep. Did he accept it?
I would allow. What's that?
I don't think he's on the panel. I accept it.
I mean, he hasn't showed up yet.
What were you gonna say, Eric?
But I know, like when I was in school, like the student council or student government association, and other like after school programs and extracurricular activities and athletics. I know they would have like certain requirements, like if you played football or basketball or soccer or any kind of sports at middle or high school, there was, of course, the stipulation that you had to be on track with your grades, like you couldn't be getting C's, D's, or F's.
Oh yeah, well that's yeah. You have eligibility requirements, which, by the way, especially in college, there's ways to get around that shit.
Yeah,
you take summer classes.
And I know in my experience that when I graduated from high school in 2003, like those that were like in certain clubs like Beta Club and like the student council or student government, a lot of them, like if not all of them, graduated with honors because they had really high GPAs, and I don't know if that is a requirement to be in those clubs, that you got to have like a high GPA, like maintaining like an AB.
No, it's just what it is. It's the type of people that are joining those clubs, Eric. Jester, what's up? Sorry, I don't interrupt people on my show to say hi to you, Jester. But a lot of it's the type of people that join those clubs. Yeah, a lot of it's just the type of people that join those clubs. Just like, so, here's what I noticed. Like in college, we had something called the what was it? The Blue Raider Awards. Blue Raiders is our mascot. No, the Blue Raiders is our mascot. That's why you didn't hear about it. It was hold on, it's got a name. It's the RCA's, Raiders Choice Awards, RCA's, and it's fun because they started this when I was there, and it was fun because you get dress up to the nines, in the suits and everything. You look good, and we'd all go out afterwards. But they would hand out awards like GPA awards to athletes, individual and teams. The football team, by the way, we never, ever, ever got the team GPA award. Now, we had 105 people on the football team, right? I mean, come on. If you actually broke it down and took the highest, let's say the next largest team would have been like the baseball team, and I think they have 30 players. If you had taken the top 30 players GPA-wise and went off of that, we probably would have won the GPA award every year. But you had the other 70 people, which I was in the other 70 for the high GPA. I wasn't up there. But a lot of it, though, Eric, it is the kind of people that are a part of those. Like, for our women's tennis team why not GPA per capita? Because we had kids on the team, though, Richie. Like I said, we have 105 people. Yeah, maybe the 30 were high, but we had some guys that were ineligible all the time, so it still lowered it. Go ahead.
I don't know if anybody had like that similar experience to me, like from what I had observed, or had like different experiences. But I know you do make a great point that it was the type of people that would join those, which I personally, I've never been involved in like student government or Beta Club. I think like the only activities I would do in the school was like FCA, which stands for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, where we would meet weekly at school. And yes, we did allow that. And I know you have like other programs like Vocational Opportunity Clubs of America and Diversified Education Groups of America, or
Diversified
Family,
Education,
Community, and Career Leaders of America, and Future Business Leaders of America. Those are some actual clubs that were in the school that I went to.
Yeah, well, they all have those, and those are.
I know it might not be everybody's cup of tea.
Rotary Club, Tennis Reject, and Tennis Reject. There you go, Richie. Tennis. Hey, I always talk crap to Britt about tennis, but she whoops my ass when we go out and try to play. Whoops my ass. But I don't. To be honest with you, I know I've heard of Rotary Club. I don't know what they do in Rotary Club, but I wasn't ever a part of any other clubs outside of.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I wasn't ever a part of any clubs other than the track team, the football team, and the baseball team. That's it. That's the only club I was ever a part of. Right. Never did a fraternity, nothing. We didn't have time. partied with them, but that's it. But going back to, look, just getting back to the whole misinformation deal. All right. The other part of this is in the media. Like, we're banning opposite sides of an argument. I saw, if you go on to Reddit, look, I always talk shit about Reddit, but Reddit's got a lot of information. And if you want to find the best combat footage for Ukraine, by the way, go on Reddit. You know, I was saying how, we haven't seen any, like, ground combat, you know, soldier-to-soldier combat footage. You go on Reddit, there's a lot of it. But I see videos, and it'll be of the Russian soldiers in Mariupol, and they're helping citizens out. They're handing out chocolate bars, they're doing all this, and all you see is Russian propaganda, Russian soldiers handing out chocolate bars, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, what automatically gives you the right to classify that as propaganda and bullshit? Because it's obviously not bullshit. He's actually handing them the fucking chocolate bar. I'm watching him do it. And it's a Russian soldier. And I'm just saying that there's two sides to everything. When we go and we start muting one side, whether or not they're lying, like, don't you think, look, as divisive as we are as a whole country, do you not think it's weird that 95% of the people support Ukraine? I want you to think about this. Now, I'm not saying that's not the right thing to do. I support the people of Ukraine. The people of Ukraine. There's a difference. Okay? I support the people, that, especially the ones that stay behind and are fighting for what they are considering their freedom. All right? Even the people in their military I support. Do I support their government? I don't know. I think Zelensky's great, but the governments before him, they were all corrupt. I don't know nothing about Zelenskyy, but the fact that he stayed behind I'm all for it. But do you not think it's weird that 95% of the world, at least the Western world, supports Ukraine? But on every other, topic, they're extremely divisive. We don't agree on 95% of anything. We don't even agree that killing a murderer or a pedophile is, we don't even have 95% agreement on that. So, is it not weird? Well, it's because they've muted the other side. And the only thing you hear here now is CNN and Fox News and all that stuff basically saying the same thing. The only ones that aren't is like maybe a Tucker Carlson and a Tulsi Gabbard. And what do they do to them? They oust them. They criticize them. I mean,
they're just so severely vilified.
Yeah, if there's 95% agreement, there's only one thing looking back in history on that I think had 95% approval rating, at least only here in the United States, and it deserved to have a 95% approval rating, and that's going to war against Japan after they bombed Pearl Harbor. And I think there was only one person in Congress that voted against that, and it was a woman, and she said, I'm voting against it because I can't go fight as a woman, so what gives me the right to say that to support a war that I necessarily wouldn't be fighting in? And that was her reasoning. It wasn't that she didn't support the cause. Pedos shouldn't be killed, just released to general population. Yeah. Accidentally released. It just makes you think that, and I said this the other day, we know that these media stations lie to us. But yet, when you are going to look for approved websites, or what do they say? They say, verified sources or whatever. The only verified sources you'll see on a list is the ones that lie to you. You have to go read information from other sources. That's why I'm not going to sit here and speak on whether or not Ketanji Brown, or how do you say her name? Is it Ketanji?
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Ketanji, right? There's no N, right?
I believe so.
Ketanji. What's her Brown Jackson? So it'd be KBJ. We'll just say KBJ. The reason I don't say much about her, even with all the stuff I've heard, is because I haven't had a chance to go look her up. All right? I haven't had a chance to listening to the questioning and her answers. I hear that she's lax on pedophiles and lax on the child porn thing. I hope she's not. If she is, I don't want that as a justice. But I don't know, because I haven't had the time to go and listen. So I'm not going to sit here and just, talk down on something I know nothing about.
And we don't put judges on the bench to legislate. If you're going to legislate, you're better off running for Congress.
No, but we put them on there to uphold. We put them on there to uphold, and they can uphold certain things.
Interpret the laws and the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Because Congress, which is the legislative branch, has the responsibility of making our laws and spending our money, and the executive branch, which is our president, or at the state level, the governors, they have the responsibility of enforcing the laws, and they can decide whether to sign bills into laws or veto them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at Congress as is, it just seems like Congress, like members of like the House and Senate, can't seem to do their jobs in order to save their lives, because we know one thing they do best or worst is they're just too busy dialing for dollars.
Yes, they are, and that's a big problem. That's the other thing. They should not be allowed to do that at all. At all. I mean, there's a lot of shit I would want to change. One of them is not the Constitution of the United States. I would not change one of those things. I would nothing about it. What I would change is what our politicians do during the day. 100%. I think that our politicians should actually spend more time in their state, than they do in Washington, D.C.
None of the day trading that, like, Nancy Pelosi's husband and Dianne Feinstein's
Well, he's not day
husband is
trading.
doing.
He's not day trading, but he's trading in equities. They shouldn't be allowed to trade in equities, hold on, let me go back. They should be allowed to trade equities as in an ETF that holds equity investments. They shouldn't be allowed to pick direct, like, independent stock picks. Like, you can't just put money in Apple and Google and all that. No, you can go buy an ETF that holds those. That's fine, because then you don't have a say in the investments that ETF's holding. Okay? But to go and start investing in specific companies, that's where you start having problems. Let them buy mutual funds. That's fine. Let them buy, ETFs. But they should only be allowed to invest in American companies, in American bonds. That's it. They should not be allowed to invest at all in international investments. I don't give a fuck what the reason is. You should not be allowed to invest in any international investment at all, in any shape or form. Unless it's, a company that's in the S&P 500 that may, do business overseas. I don't have a problem with that. Oh, yeah, family members too, John. Because John asked, he said Hunter too? Yeah, no, family members too. Look, when you go to run for Congress, it needs to be like, hey, this is a whole family thing. All the way to the first cousins, at least. I mean, we need to start, and then because we need to have a way to where the family's willing to hold them accountable for stuff too. Like, maybe if Hunter gets in trouble, especially for the stuff that he was doing, then Joe should get in trouble too. I don't see how Joe Biden doesn't get in trouble, or anyone in the Obama administration doesn't get in trouble if Hunter's indicted. There's no way. Richie says, topic for another day, confidential informants or anonymous sources, good or bad? Bad. Bad. Now, if it's like a legal issue, I think if someone accuses something or someone testifies against you, isn't it a law that you're allowed to know who it is? Isn't there a law for that? Where if you're going to testify against someone in court, that person that you're testifying against is allowed to know who is testifying against them? right to face your accused. Yeah, exactly. Look, when I write my articles on my site, I always put links to the sources, and like I've said, I try to get all my sources from government websites because of the stuff I'm writing about, whether it's statistics, whatever. Is it wrong or is it right? They may be wrong about things. We don't trust government on everything, but at least I can go back and say, look, this is supposed to be the most credible source, and it's supposed to be the unbiased. The government's just getting the information. So I'd rather hold the government accountable for being wrong than getting it from some news site that is obviously biased, like a Fox News or a CNN. But one thing I don't ever do is say per anonymous sources, or what is that? That's just hearsay. But you have CNN, you have Fox News, you have all these that do that all the time. They literally say, we have an anonymous source, or we have this information was leaked. Leaked from fucking who? That's why the whistleblower thing, I get why they have it like that.
Whistleblower Protection Act.
Yeah, I get why they do that. But at some point, we need to know who it is. Yeah, well, look, you should protect the whistleblower for as long as the investigation's going on. If it turns out that it's wrong, and if there's no proof, then don't say who the whistleblower is. But if it turns out that shit's right, then we need to know. In my opinion, I mean.
Well, and in some states, like if you had like crimes against children and women, like women who are victims of sexual abuse and rape and children, states usually have a place like a shield law to where the identities of those victims cannot be released.
I see why they would do certain things like that, but at some point, when is it that
it would come out eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, because you got to protect them. They're in danger, especially like if you're testifying against the mob or something like that. But at the same time, if we're upholding, the innocent until proven guilty or anything like that, you have to be able to defend yourself. And I think a big part of defending yourself is knowing who's accusing you of what you did. It kind of goes like to the red flag laws. When I read in Sheila Jackson Lee's gun bill from 2 years ago, she was trying to get passed that she wanted the red flag laws, and then she wanted like an ex-spouse to be able to turn you in for mental issues. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, how many people like their ex-spouse? Right? How many people have problems with their ex-spouse? That doesn't mean that they're messed up in the head and shouldn't own a gun. Maybe the ex-spouse is mad because she lost the divorce settlement. Or he, it doesn't have to be a she, right? And she didn't get no money, or he didn't get no money. Maybe they're mad about that. So, I'm going to, stick it to him. I'm going to go say he's mentally insane and can't own a firearm. Like, there's a lot of things. So, it's a tricky situation. Next thing I want to get into, someone can back me up on this too, but I'm pretty sure NATO said that if Russia used chemical weapons, that would be going too far and that we would intervene. Is that correct? Someone please verify that. But I believe that's where they said that they kind of drew the line, was at the chemical weapons.
Raccoon probably might answer that.
Yeah, but they're not going to use chemical weapons.
You want to bet?
They don't. They don't need to.
Well,
why would they need? And another thing too is chemical weapons. Which chemical weapons are you talking about?
Well, so I'm about to tell you. Yeah.
Biologicals or just
nerve agents.
Tear gas.
It'd be gas.
So tear gas is not considered a chemical weapon.
I'm not talking about tear gas though.
Crap out of you.
Well, I'm not talking about that. Listen, here, I'll tell you. So, a couple days ago, I want to say it was last week sometime, there was a civilian in Ukraine. Well, I say he's a civilian. He was a man, so he's probably a combatant. That said he had witnessed the Russians using white phosphorus. I also saw a video on Reddit that showed them dropping it at night. And you could see on the infrared where these bombs were blowing up and they had smoke, what looked like smoke on the infrared, just covering. There was no fire. It was just covering this forest they dropped it on, where the Ukrainians were staged up at night. Now today, a couple hours ago, this article comes out, and it's of Zelenskyy. And here I'll read it. It says, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy on Thursday accused Russian President Vladimir Putin, everyone's name's Vladimir over there, Vladimir Putin forces of using phosphorus bombs in their latest wave of attacks on his country, telling NATO leaders in Brussels that people were killed, including children. Now, White Phosphorus, the only thing I know White Phosphorus from, laugh at me if you want, is from Call of Duty. It's a kill streak perk, all right? But I know that shit will kill you on Call of Duty, so I'm assuming it'll kill you in real life.
Okay, Mike. White phosphorus is used as an incendiary bomb.
Mm-hmm. But it hangs around.
Out, you have to have serious mud to get rid of the flame or the burning of it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll set everything on fire. 10,000 degrees.
Yeah, so it kills you. It kills you.
Yeah, if it gets on you.
Yeah. So that's what they're saying they were using. And it says, Europe is going through a war every day, of which is full of war crimes of Russian troops, Zelenskyy said. According to an NBC News translation this morning, I received information that Russian troops had used phosphorus bombs against civilians in Ukraine. He did not provide evidence in his address, and the Pentagon said it was not able to confirm the Ukrainian leader's allegation when contacted by NBC News. It is difficult to verify the claims without U.S. personnel on the ground, 3 U.S. defense officials said, but if true, the use of white phosphorus bombs could add a disturbing new dimension to Russia's military assault on Ukraine. It says, here's a general overview of their destructive potential. Here it says, the white form of the chemical substance phosphorus is highly toxic and notorious for the severity of its injuries it causes, according to information piled up by Human Rights Watch, a leading watchdog organization. White phosphorus ignites on contact with oxygen and is highly soluble in fat, meaning it grievously burns human flesh. If it lands on somebody, it burns very, very vigorously, said Hamish de Breton Gordon. That's a long name. A former commander of the United Kingdom's and NATO's chemical, biological, and nuclear defense forces. Munitions, artillery shells, bombs, rockets, mortars containing white phosphorus operate similarly to incendiary weapons as defined by Protocol 3 to the 1980 Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons. They set fires and cause burns through the action of flame, heat, or a combination thereof produced by a chemical reaction of a substance delivered on the target. Now, it says it's illegal for militaries to possess it, and armed forces around the world, including U.S. troops, have said they use it to mark a target or create a smoke screen according... What? Oh, it's not illegal. Okay, I was about to say. It's not illegal for militaries to possess it. And armed forces... Now, why would you use that as a smoke screen? Is that just so people aren't coming through the smoke? So it's... Obviously, you're getting a visual...
Mike, the smoke will render you useless because when you run through it, it will literally scald your lungs as far as the ash that's in the air.
So that's what I'm saying. So they use it as a
kind of
smoke
like
screen.
A barrier smoke screen.
Okay. Not only does it get rid of the visual aspect, but it also keeps you from pushing through it too. Okay. It says, but like all weapons, it is illegal to use against civilian targets, and the use of airdropped incendiary weapons in populated areas is prohibited under Protocol 3, Johnson said. I will say this.
Now, Mike, now before you get any deeper in that, Zelenskyy said everybody between the age of 16 and 60, or 17 and 60, had to stay back and fight.
Well, you knew where I was going with this. I said this.
Yeah, but now there are no civilian targets because everybody's supposed to have evacuated the area. So if there's civilian targets there, that's because they're held there against their will.
Yes, that's a good point. Now, I had a whole episode to this, and on YouTube it was about 50% liked. You know, a lot of people didn't like this. But look, I say what I think, and I think exactly what Raccoon just said, and I've addressed this. Every man in that country right now is a combatant by law because they are declared a combatant by their own country. Zelenskyy did that like the first day that Ukraine got invaded. One of the first things he did. Everyone between the ages of think it was 18 and 60, every male had to stay behind. So much so that I saw a video of a male that was about in his 20s that was trying to sneak out of the country into Moldova in a car, hidden in a car. They arrested his ass and sent him back. So the other thing is you see videos of these citizens, and rightly so. Look, I'm not against the citizens here, so hear me out. But they're making Molotov cocktails, mass producing these things. I watched videos where they're throwing these at the Russian tanks, 4 or 5 of them, and it's stopping these things in their tracks. So at what point do these civilians become combatants? If the Russians are being shown... Go ahead.
It's as soon as they start producing and throwing munitions of any sort, which could be a stick, they become a combatant. Molotov cocktail, it's combatant. RPG round, they're a combatant. Anytime you raise your hand to fight into the enemy's sights, you are considered a combatant by Geneva Convention.
Yep. And
that's why he won't let them get out of the country.
Yeah. And I always say this, going back to our police here in the United States, people think that they're just inhuman. They think that they don't have families or something. The Russian soldiers have families. Our cops have families. The Ukrainians have families. Just because, why does it have to be black and white, right? Why does it have to be Ukraine good, Russia bad? Anyone in Russia is bad. Everyone in Ukraine is good, right? No. The Russian soldiers are following orders, and the Ukrainians are fighting against the Russians because they're being invaded. But, the Russian soldiers still have the right to go home and protect themselves. And the Ukrainians have the right to protect themselves. But with that, you have two sides that are trying to kill each other. And to say that, all these civilians are being bombed, yes, there's a lot of civilians being bombed, and it's freaking sad. It's sad. But a lot of the civilians that are there aren't even civilians anymore. They're now combatants. And, they're handing guns out. They're making bombs. They're towing tanks. They're doing things that are, helping out the Ukrainian military. By the way, the towing of the tanks is the funniest shit I've ever seen. If you haven't seen the pictures or the videos of these Ukrainian farmers towing these tanks back to their house and stealing that shit, it is so funny. But a lot of them are combatants. That's what insurgency is. Why do you think they're saying that he's going to face an insurgency when they get into Kiev that could last them, it could be years if they kept this up? It's because it's not the military. They can defeat the military. They're in Iraq, we went through and wiped out the Iraqi military in less than a month. But how long were we in Iraq? 10 years? Because we were fighting insurgents and what we said were civilians that looked like civilians. It's the same thing.
Who was actually, Mike, who was actually funding the insurgents, though?
Probably the Russians at that point.
No. Hezbollah.
Mm.
Somebody we give billions to every year.
Yeah.
Just for shit like that.
Well, who do you think would fund?
The ISIS was formed by our own government by the 44th, and when that fell out, when he lost his election, or he lost his term in service and Hillary didn't get involved in it, Trump cut the money from it, and all of a sudden, boom, they're gone.
Yeah.
When this war ends, and I think it's going to end by April, and by maybe middle April, 1st of May, then it's going to be China, and then we'll be right back to the same thing. Look over here, not over there.
Yeah, but which, by the way, came out that
we did cure COVID with this invasion.
Well, no, not yet, because you see where it's coming back. They're having waves. Hell, China's shutting down.
They're talking about the waves, but you're not seeing it.
Yeah.
Look at the statistics.
I know. Hey, look, COVID's
It's
something.
all smoke and mirrors. It's all smoke and mirrors and propaganda is all it ever is.
Yeah. I will say this though, they came out and said that Russia was using the vacuum bombs. The U.S. said the same thing, right? We can't verify that. Well, it turns out Russia was actually using vacuum bombs. And then it said they were using cluster bombs. We said we can't verify it. Turns out they were actually using cluster bombs. Now you have the white phosphorus. U.S. says we can't verify it. Zelenskyy has been right about a lot of stuff he's accused the Russians of so far.
Every military in the world uses the same things, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
It's no big deal on the battlefield.
But
they're going to use them because they have them in the stockpiles.
Yeah.
It's not against the law.
Oh, I know. But what I will say, though, is if they're using it, would that not classify as using a chemical weapon? And thus, would NATO be lying about not intervening?
No, it's not a chemical weapon. Chemical weapon by NATO is considered to be a weapon that has a chemical or biological entity in it that causes extreme distress and massive casualties. That's a chemical.
So
if he was to drop, say, sarin gas or a VX nerve agent, that's a chemical. If he's to drop something in there like a smallpox bomb, cause people to come down with smallpox or some other disease, then that's a biological.
Yeah.
And of course, we know what the atomic are.
Yeah. So now if he dropped these white phosphorus bombs in the middle of Kiev,
it's not a war crime.
Really?
Yeah. All he's doing is tearing out a daggone objective. You use whatever you have available within the guidelines of the rule of war through the Geneva Convention. You can pound the shit out of it with 1,000 daggone artillery pieces and heavy aircraft. It's not against the law. You are overtaking an objective, and it's within the rule of war.
So that's a good point. And I see it how you see it too, by the way. But now they're sitting here and they're accusing Putin of war crimes. Well, then what's he doing that's against the law? If by law you can take
the only law he's broken is he's went into Ukraine. Now, ask yourself, how many Ukrainians really don't want to be in Ukraine because the government is so damn corrupt that they can't live at a decent level? They're in poverty all the time. That's what you got to ask yourself. Yeah, the Ukrainians are getting killed, and Russians are getting killed, and we're standing around with our thumb up our butt along with the rest of NATO, and nobody wants to do a damn thing about it. So who's at fault now? NATO.
I want
to too damn chicken to go in there and do anything to stop you.
Well, let me ask you guys this: is these sanctions that we're putting on Russia? That, by the way, I'm gonna hit on this sanction thing in a second, but the sanctions we're putting on Russia is wrecking the Russian economy. I think suicide rates
wrecking our economy.
Yeah, but suicide rates
our economy's already in turmoil.
Yeah,
it's not hurting them anymore, and it's hurting us.
Well, it's hurting them faster because, but it's falling back on us. Yes, absolutely. It's just hurting them faster. They're kind of way ahead of it because they didn't have a lot to begin with. But let's say Russia, they start having massive food shortages. They start losing jobs, right? They start losing houses. They start their suicide rate skyrockets. Would we not be at fault for that? And most of these Russians have not fought in this war, and a lot of them oppose it. Now, I get the reason we are doing it, but then you have Biden comes out, and someone asks him, says, are these a good deterrent? And he said, sanctions were never meant to be a deterrent. Then what the fuck are you sanctioning anyone for?
Sanctioning never does a damn thing to cure a war.
Yeah.
The only thing that cures the war is somebody decides to quit fighting, just like we did in Vietnam, just like we did in goddamn Iraq. just like we did in goddamn South Korea. Okay? Sanctions don't mean nothing. Look at Iran. Iran's been under sanctions since
WP.
1980.
Mm-hmm. So is North
And
Korea.
they're still thriving.
Look at North Korea. North Korea,
Yeah.
hell, they're sanctioned to the. I mean, I don't think you can put another sanction on them.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, sanctions are only something for eyewash. That's all it does. They're not going to buy into your products, so you'll have to sell them somewhere else. What if all of a sudden China says, "Here, Russia, have some money. Get your economy back up. We got plenty over here."
Mm-hmm.
Russia continues to steamroll for, say, the next 20 years. Who's at fault? Is the United States? No, we're not the damn police force of the world, even though people think we should be.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a clash of cultures. Cultures are what drives the damn military forces. We go in to steal the hearts and minds of the people involved in it as citizens, and they will come to us because we start giving out free shit. They don't give a damn if we kill ourselves or get killed by bombing. And if they lose somebody in a collateral damage attack, our government pays the shit out of it.
Mm-hmm.
In Korea, I hit a freaking cow with the damn APC. You know that damn cow? They paid for that cow
Mm-hmm.
and all the cows that cow would have produced plus milk.
Yeah.
$25,000 for a freaking cow.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's all the money laundering bullshit is all war is. Our military complex wants to get started because they're down 35% right now.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get back in the war scene so they can get them stocks back up and make the money profits off of it. If you want to see where the daggone fault lies, look at where the damn politicians are stuffing their money into war bonds. And I say war bonds, I'm saying the military industrial complex people
Mm-hmm.
or corporations, which there's a ton of them. And then you'll see what's
coffers of the
going on. If
military
they
industrial
made
complex, yes.
purchases in high dollar items, you can bet they're planning on having a war go on.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how they do that crap. And we're not obligated to go to Europe and fight for the Ukrainians against Russia.
Nope.
Russia don't want us to fight with them, for one,
Mm-hmm.
because they're really not that big of a freaking army that we could probably go in there and just knock the crap out of them in maybe a week or two.
Well, they're getting their ass whooped right
before
now.
they got back into their,
They're getting their ass whooped right now.
No, they're not.
So the Kremlin, the TASS, right? The actual like Russian state media just put out that there's over 10,000 Russian soldiers that have died. That's from Russia itself. Over 10,000 dead. It's not counting all the total casualties.
And it's propaganda because you'll never know the exact number.
No, that's the Kremlin putting that out.
Yeah.
So it's probably a lot higher, is what I'm saying.
They might be saying that too, just to get some pity.
I don't think
They
they're
might be
gonna get
saying
pity.
that to juice up their own countrymen to go in there and start helping out.
But wouldn't
We don't know what
wouldn't-
their intentions are.
Wouldn't the Russians be more pissed off about that this simple military operation they were supposed to be doing has
Well, they
cost
probably are
10,000
pissed
people's
off
lives?
about it.
I mean, think about how many moms
lost
and
10
wives aren't going to have their.
How many people? How many divisions is 10,000?
I don't know. You tell me. One division. That's a lot. 10,000. I mean, in a month. That's not that long.
That ain't very many at all, considering we have 16 active divisions in the United States. That's it.
Yeah, but the
rest
casualties,
of them are
though.
National Guard and Army Reserve.
Yeah, but you have to
which
look
makes
at
up another.
You got to look at the casualties. Is all I care about, though. Is I mean, we had 4,500 people killed in both Iraq and Afghanistan in a 20-year period.
Yeah.
right?
That's a
They've
half a
had
division.
They've had more than 10,000 in a month. Russia has. This is supposed to be the second most powerful army in the world. They've had 10,000 deaths, not casualties, deaths in less than a
Yeah.
month. It took. We had not even half of that in 20 years. So that's where I'm getting at. Like that's not a good thing for them.
Well, like I said, Mike, they're writing the statistics. Whenever politicians write the statistics later on, they'll come back and say, "Oh, we made a mistake."
Mm-hmm.
Those 10,000 were injured, but we only lost 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
Just like they're doing with the CDC right now. If you research the CDC and what they did in the last 2 days, they've been adjusting the numbers constantly on how many people died. Right now, 171,000 people did not die from COVID during the COVID epidemic.
Well, yeah.
Statistics don't mean shit.
Yeah.
It's whether or not you win the war, and they're going to win the war if they want to at any and all cost. Because their reputation's on the line, and if they don't do or destroy themselves doing it, then they'll become a third world country just because everybody else would just cease to acknowledge their existence anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Vietnam. Vietnam ain't known for a hell of a lot of stuff, but they do have a lot of slave sewing shops there for Reebok tennis shoes and shit.
Yeah. No. I just answered that question. By the way, Mike Tampa Bay asked on Facebook if those numbers were reliable. Probably not. It's probably a low estimate though because it's coming from the Kremlin. That's what I'm saying. The last time the Kremlin, so there was a few weeks ago, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, they had published the numbers, and I think they said it was about 500 that had died at that point. When our estimates, were between 4,000 and 7,000. The Kremlin just came out and upped that 500 to over 10,000. So that's where. Stop, Michael.
It might be a smokescreen to make everybody think they are losing, and all of a sudden they're going to win. I mean, we don't know for exactly what's going on over there. We have no idea what the numbers are. We have no idea what the damn plan is.
Mm-hmm.
But to sit there and speculate about who's winning and losing, if you're going to lose everything, why not pop a nuke off?
But that's what's scaring me, right? That's where I don't think it's going to go. I hope it doesn't go down that far. But when
I don't think it go that far either.
Yeah, but I do think that
I really don't think the politicians in our country have a complete grasp on anything that's going through there, because they really ain't worried about anything other than the money they're going to make off of it, or the information that's going to be revealed from it. That's what people should be looking at, is what are they revealing to us, and where does it center to?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
With the nuke thing, though, you bring up a good point. Look, I don't know. Hell, maybe he does. I don't think he will. I think probably it doesn't end up that far, right? But it brings up the question of where does this end? I personally think that Putin, because he's withheld a lot of his reasons behind why he's invading all of Ukraine instead of just taking those Russian, the Donbass and Luhansk regions from the public, he's got a lot of people he needs to try and get on his side in Russia, and he's got a lot of people he needs to keep on his side. So I think that he can't just pull out of this now, regardless of how many Russians have died, and with nothing. He can't get anything less than everything that he wants, demands. He can't. He's in almost a lose-lose situation now, because again, if they have had over 10,000 people die in a month, it's probably going to continue. This war isn't going to get easier for him. Now, he is sending in Syrians, and he is sending in Chechens, so he doesn't give a fuck if they die. But, at what point does it get out of control, And he looks at it and says, I've taken a substantial loss of armored vehicles. I've taken a substantial loss of life. And I can't just pull out of this for nothing. And this was all for nothing. We gotta threaten them with some of these other weapons. How can you back out of something like this? Imagine in Iraq we went in and invaded them, but it didn't go the way that it went, right? Where we just go through, make it to Baghdad in a month and end the war, basically, or at least all major military operations, as Bush did, and just run through Iraq. Imagine if Iraq started, slowing us down and causing serious problems in our military and a substantial loss of life with no weapons of mass destruction being found. What do you think would happen? I mean, the political fallout would have just been. I mean, if you think given Biden shit about Afghanistan was bad, could you imagine if the Iraq invasion went the way that this Ukraine one is for Russia? Oh my God! Now,
Okay, Mike.
Yeah.
One thing about that now, United States government doesn't fight wars. Their citizens fight wars with the instructions that not the generals in the military in charge give them, but the ones that frickin' Congress sanctions on the frickin' generals. Do not fire upon unless fired at.
Yeah.
If you're fired at, you must call in for radio or for authorization to fire back. Okay?
Yeah.
You cannot bomb anything. We have to know what the target is days ahead of time. Then when they get to where they're going to bomb the damn thing, there ain't nothing there no more.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, but what I'm getting at though, right?
Taking consideration, we had a few of our congressmen who went over and were being photoed with the freaking enemy. Them son of a bitches didn't face any backlash at all about it. Okay? The thing that people have to get in their head is that the damn politicians do not give a shit. All they're worried about is money. They could care less about loss of life. Why do you think we used Agent Orange in Vietnam? And then when he got, we can't use that no more, it's against the law. What did they do with Agent Orange? They downgraded it to Roundup. Now they're poisoning their own damn citizens.
Yeah. No.
Roundup is used in damn agriculture all around the United States. In some nations, they will not allow it in their countries, but we will. They don't give a shit about us. And to sit there and worry about the Ukrainians, and worry about what the Russians are going to do, there's nothing that we can do about it. Because we can't do a damn thing until Congress says, okay, start the draft. Let's get bodies over there. Let's push them back into Russia. Hell, let's just take Russia away from them. You're looking at another 20 or 30 or 40 or 50-year war and annihilation of the population of the world because they're going to take the fittest breeding stock out of our society here in the United States and waste it in a war.
And it's
just
happened
like
before.
Napoleon did with the French.
And the English did in World War I, and the French did in World War I. By the way, have you guys ever look, World War II was bad, right? World War II, I mean, how many people? 70 million people died. 70 million to 100 million people died in World War II. World War I, though, if you go look at that, between the English, the French, and the Germans, and even Australia, for that matter, and a few others.
And Canadians.
The loss of life, right? I think it was, 25% of the, young generation.
The male population.
Because you had the older ones, but like the 18 to 30 range in England died in that war. It was some crazy number. I mean, you had in the Somme, the English had 100,000 people dying in like a day in the first day of that battle within the first couple hours, or maybe like 60,000, but they had over 1 million die in that whole battle. Sorry, not 1 million died out of German between all of them. I think the English had like 400,000 die in that one battle alone in the Somme. The United States, see, World War I, the United States, we won that war for them. When you look at, but we only went and fought one major battle over there, and that was in the Argonne.
Yeah, we were there for a very short time.
Yeah, in 1918, we were there for less than a year. We went and did the Argonne Offensive. By the way, isn't that Belleau Wood? That's like where the Marine Corps really made their name, right, Raccoon?
Well, Argonne Force is where also the 1st Division made their name too. There was a monument put in there, and you got shit knocked out of it during World War II when the Germans went in there and blew up stuff. But the Marines and the 1st Division and the I think it's a 265, they all fought in Argonne Forest during World War I, and they got the shit knocked out of them, but a lot of them survived it.
Yeah. But that is a good thing, right? If you get into a major war, for those of you that are, thinking we should go do a no-fly zone and all that shit, then you need to realize what that comes with. And look, I'm 29. I'm probably, if something like that ever happened, I'm probably going.
You're in the age limit.
Yeah, I'm in pretty decent shape now. I don't know how they'll like my Tourette's, but I don't think that'd be too big of a deal, right? But I'm probably going. And I'm fine with that. But I think people need to realize what this entails and the risks that go along with it. All right? World War II was so bad. I mean, Russia lost 20-some million people alone. The Germans over 1 million. The Chinese lost like 30 or 40. Do you know? That's the thing. I think the Russians had lost the most, but the Chinese were right up there with them. The Chinese lost a lot of people in World War II.
After World War II,
We can't hear you, Raccoon.
Russia killed about 60 million other people.
Oh, yeah. Well, that and China did too.
Yeah.
This could be a serious conflict, but we're treading a thin line with it too, right? Why do we need? Is a major war worth defending Ukraine? I don't think so. I don't. Here's the other thing: is Ukraine going to pay this money back? What's the long-term, what is the long-term effect of this? What is winning for Ukraine? What does that look like? It's, is it just completely get the Russians to pull out and keep your borders? That's what it sounds like, and that's fine if that's the objective, but what is likely to be the scenario? I don't think they're going to retain the Donbass and Luhansk regions. And, I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. But it seems like every day we're going further and further down this road where we're going to end up intervening. Apparently, he said, right, the Tourette's is a disqualifying factor. Michael, you're safe. I'll go volunteer. If they're going to disqualify me for fucking Tourette's.
It won't make no difference, Mike, if they're having an all-out war.
Yeah.
They're going to take anybody and everybody as able-bodied. If you can't walk, they'll put you in an armored tank as a driver or something,
That's a good point. Look, I'd volunteer. Honestly. And if we get in a war with Russia, we wouldn't need to have the draft if it was a conventional war. But if we start nuking people, then I don't think.
No difference.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a war anyway. I don't think there will ever be just a straight conventional war with Russia, because, it won't get to that. As soon as as soon as you see fighting between each other, you know, it's the thought process is immediately going to shift. The United States keeps shooting down our jets. How can we protect our jets? Well, we're going to frickin' nuke their freaking their ships, you know, this group of ships out in the ocean. We're going to fucking drop bombs on them. You know, take out their aircraft carriers. We're going to start dropping bombs on NATO bases. And when I say bombs, I'm talking about nuclear warhead bombs.
Okay, Mike, let me explain something for the viewers here that don't know. Every major military installation, every major city, including Washington, D.C., and anything that has a structural meaning, to the Defense Department, most likely is already on a target.
Oh, yeah. They've declassified the targets. And they know which ones they are.
Well, yeah, they know. I was at Fort Bragg. We were number 4 on the East Coast. And so was Pope Air Force Base right next to us. Every one of those are on a nuke target, and those are the ones that they'll try to send nukes into. How many make it is beyond anybody's guess, but the damage will already be done by the ones that already hit the bigger cities that have no missile capability. Well, we had the same thing for them and everybody else, but we are still under a mutual destruction agreement with the entire world leaders who own nuclear missiles.
Yeah.
And so it won't make no difference. If one goes up, the whole freaking world just got shut down because it will be a total.
And the problem is, this stuff happens so fast. Was it 10 minutes? You have 10 minutes, you know, once one of these missiles are launched, and now they have the hypersonic.
EDS ain't going to help.
Yeah, and now you have.
EDS ain't going to help.
Yeah, well, and now you have the hypersonic missiles that Russia and China have. It could be less than 10 minutes. It'd be 5 minutes, you know. But see, it's also a use it or lose it deal because you won't know if they've launched all of them. You don't want to take the risk of not being able to have the capability of fighting back. So as soon as one's launched and they know it's launched at a NATO or U.S. target, it's over with. The only way it wouldn't be over with if a nuclear bomb went off is if a terrorist got a hold of one and planted it, like in The Sum of All Fears, like that movie where they planted it at the dock and no one knew. They knew it was there kind of, but right before, but they knew it wasn't the Russians, or they thought it was, but they found out it wasn't. But if a missile is launched, they'll be able to detect that missile, and they'll know what it is. And they'll know, like, for Russia to go and start launching nukes, obviously there's been something to lead up to that. It's not just going to happen overnight. So, you know, there's going to be major consequences with something like this. And
the major consequence is we already know where the nukes are at because they track them with satellite imagery. They know where they're stocking them at. They know where they put them together. We already know all the ships that have nuclear weapons on them. We can see them with satellites now.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of a stalemate. It's my junk's bigger than your junk, and if you mess with me, I'm going to blow your junk off, and then all of a sudden everybody's going to town and threatening each other. But that's as far as it'll get. But you got to also ask yourself, if China has a hypersonic missile and Russia has a hypersonic missile, don't you think we had it first?
I would assume so, yeah.
From us.
Assumingly, yes. But I've read about that, Raccoon, not long ago, and for everything I've read is saying we don't have that yet. I think that's a stretch. I think we do have it. I think that the United States doesn't. They hide it under. We're not as open. They
hide it under the guise of a Defense Department secrets. And you'll never know about it until they want to release it, and it's already been outdated.
Exactly. Here's the thing. I see things all the time about what the Chinese are trying to do and what the Russians are trying to do. The F-35 is really the only thing I know of that was kind of advertised that we were making. Other than that, you don't see a lot of what, the capabilities the United States has with some of this stuff. Like, I don't think they tell you if we had a hypersonic missile. I guarantee you right now, they're putting a bunch of money to try and figure out how to shoot down hypersonic missiles. Now,
we got the satellites to do it. We got the satellites to do it, Mike.
Yeah. It's,
So do they.
Mm-hmm.
So do they.
I guarantee
a lot of
you.
Space junk up there.
Here's the other thing. You have China, you have Russia. Now, they all have computers, right? And now they talk about Russia's cyber capabilities and how good it is. They say they're up there, if not the best, with the cyber capabilities. I find that hard to believe, though, because this is where the freedom of thought and expression comes into play. We have regular-ass people here, all right, that are 10, 15 years old that can – there's the guy in the kid that goes to UCF, when he was in high school, was able to hack and track Elon Musk's private jet. And now he's actually – they've gone to him, and he's hacked and has been tracking all of the Russian oligarchs' yachts and where they're at. So you're telling me that we don't have people here in the United States that can do any – especially technologically, like with computers and stuff – we could hack any fucking thing in Russia we probably wanted to. I guarantee it. And they probably have similar capabilities to us. But
all the crap that they talk about, we've been hacked about. Mm-hmm. Don't you think that might be our own people doing that crap?
And testing
we have a lot of people here in the United States that do that because they hate the United States. They want to see it fall.
Well, and I think a lot of it too.
College students and semi-professional people around the United States that will get a power shut off somewhere, or they'll stop the water, but you never really hear much about it. Mm-hmm. They say, "Oh, it must have been a malfunction." And what about the goddamn pipeline on the East Coast and it shut down all of a sudden? Mm-hmm. You think do you think Russia actually said, yeah, we're going to shut the damn power station off, go ahead and do it? And then they do it, and all of a sudden everybody's surprised? That was bullshit. We did it ourselves. It already came out.
Well, and think about this. It could also be our own government doing it, or like you said, regular people here in the United States that are hacking this stuff. Because how do they test security systems? They test it by getting someone to break into them, and they find out what the weaknesses are, right? I mean, the people hacking like our pipelines and stuff, like all these things, or Microsoft or whatever, when all that happened, it could just be regular people that the government's paying to try and hack these systems so we can figure out how to make it stronger. Honestly, it's a good way to do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you, at the same time, you also couldn't tell everyone about that, right? So you got to blame it on someone. So what do? We blame Russia. We blame Chinese, right? We do all that. But Richie says
we have companies dedicated to doing that stuff, to find the systems, hacking into systems all over the United States and trying to beef up the security on them. But we have companies who do that on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. I know one guy who does that on a regular basis in his company. And they say they go in there, they hack it, they shut the daggone plant down, or they go in there and hack the computer a little bit to tweak it to let them know they're there. And then they try to figure out a way to keep it from happening again, put up safeguards and backdoors and crap like that on them.
Yeah.
Closed back doors and all kinds of crap. But that happens all over the place, and every country in the world's got the capability to do that crap because we got computers in every country damn near in the world, and somebody's going to play on them and figure out a way to make money off of it. Whether it's like that when they had those lockdowns and cities were paying big bucks to get their stuff turned back on. Mm-hmm. Those were done by independent hackers. And they were ransoming their systems.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you know what scares me more than anything, right, is that kind of crime. I think I've said this before. One of my very close friends, his dad and his mom got hacked twice, and it was by the same person. They got hacked. They went and got new stuff, but the person they didn't change out their thermostat, and the person was able to basically hide. I'm not technical, okay? People are gonna fucking laugh at me when I say this, but basically he was able to, bug the thermostat or whatever. I said hide in it, but bug it. And then when he went back home and connected the new stuff to the Wi-Fi, even though it was a new Wi-Fi, it connected the thermostat, and bam, he got in again and hacked him again. And they say, look, they had Photoshop pictures of him that of things that hell they had him on a beach with some guy, and he ain't never even been, halfway across the country, and the dad hadn't even been to this place. But they said, look, we're gonna blackmail you, and you got to give us your money and stuff like that. Those are the people, like, that's the shit that scares me. And honestly, the people that have that kind of intelligence, if you're not working for the military, you should be in jail. Because you're just a major threat to society when you think about it, when you're doing that stuff. You're truly ruining people's lives. And don't think...
you take in consideration right now, people got these boxes in their houses that talk to them. Okay? Oh, yeah. Those things are set up to spy on you. They listen to everything, and sometimes they'll tell you things that you want to know, and sometimes it tells you shit you don't want to hear. And if you ask a certain questions, the damn thing won't answer you because they're not programmed to answer certain questions. Mm-hmm. However, it spies on you. The voice control from satellite dish you're using on your TV set, the voice control remotes, they're spying on you. Your freaking refrigerator, if it's within 5 years old, is spying on you.
Well, this is what Edward Snowden told us about.
There's nothing you can do with it.
This is what Snowden told us about. This goes back to Edward Snowden. Yeah. This is what he showed us, that they were collecting 3 times the amount of information from our own computer cameras here in the United States and data on us here in the United States than we were from China.
They built a complex in Utah just to store all that information.
Yeah.
And it's the size of like 10 giant Walmarts. And we're continuing to add on to it. Mm-hmm. Just to hold the data.
Look, we all play into this game. Okay, I run a podcast. I want advertising on the podcast. And I would want, I would want, like, tailored advertising. So the people watching it sees an advertisement for, okay, Jesser is a prepper, right? I wanted to show Jesser some fucking MREs and advertise that shit. Some new gourmet MRE meals or something that cost $5. Why? Because he's going to click on it and see what's in there, and I get paid. We all play into this game. We're all guilty of this.
Yep.
Okay? So am I all opposed to it? It sucks. When you look at and theoretically, I mean, we should be, but at the same time, we all take advantage of that system. All of us. I mean, I work in sales, right? Sometimes you go buy a list of potential prospects. How do they get the information from that list? They're pulling that data of these people in the specifications that you chose, and they're giving it to you. You're paying for it.
Yeah, who's selling it to you?
Yeah, who's getting that data? Well, it could be from major companies. Like, it could be when you go make a purchase at Dick's Sporting Goods. You give them your email, right? And they're selling that email information. Or you give them their zip code, and they're selling a list to maybe me, who's looking for potential investment clients above a certain income level. And these zip codes are primarily inhabited by people in this income level. So they're going to send me the...
How about the fact...
So, go ahead.
Mike, how about the fact that we're supposed to have the right to privacy, but you could be talking on the phone to somebody and then turn on YouTube and find exactly the same thing you were talking about in an advertisement.
Mm-hmm. So that's a weird one.
I ain't figured that one out
yet. Well, you know what I have learned, though, is a lot of times you think that's it, right? But I think, I've went and looked at this before. I think how they do it is, a lot of times, let's say you go watch a YouTube video, and they have the advertisements. you may spend more time on certain advertisements, or you're watching a video that has to do with something, and then they are collecting that data.
Delete 'em.
Yeah, but you're collecting that. They're collecting the data. Okay, you're watching these type of videos, right? Or you went and looked up.
Yeah.
You went and looked something up. Let's say you needed a new fridge for the house, right? So you went and looked up a fridge. Or you went and bought something, at the store. They get that data. So it's not that they're listening to you, but they're looking at other little things that you actually have done that are tailored to a certain interest or a certain product or whatever, and that's how they're advertising it. And then
they get the stuff that you're buying in store because you're using a debit card that goes into the internet, and they suck it out of there.
Yeah, and that's when
if you pay cash, they have no idea what the hell you're liking. But what I'm saying is, when you're talking to somebody about something that maybe they're thinking about buying, and all of a sudden you're finding about every third commercial is for the same damn thing you were talking about, or you get a whole line of them across the damn the screen. You can thumb through them and see it. If you're talking about a certain boot, that certain boot is from 6 different companies, 6 different companies selling it, or you get an eBay commercial for the same damn thing you were talking about with somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I'm talking about. See, we are not guaranteed privacy anymore. The only privacy you get is you keep your mouth shut. You don't do anything. You don't disseminate information. You don't do this. You don't do that. It doesn't get out. Therefore, they're censoring you again.
Yeah.
You see how it comes around?
Yeah.
What you like might not be what you want to buy, but on the other hand, why do they need to even know that shit? It's for control of your thoughts.
Jester says but we can't stop child trafficking. We can't stop child trafficking because we don't want to stop child trafficking because there's no incentive to stop it.
They're involved in it because they're involved in it.
A lot of them are, and I've said this before, right? Because Eric, weren't they questioning KBJ on the child pornography stuff? Like people who had child porn on there?
I think that was tied to it and her being real lax on those kind of cases. It's almost like people, who have engaged in that serious crime, it's almost like she's being too lenient on them, or in some cases letting them off scot-free.
So there's only child pornography because there's a market for child pornography. There's only gas to sell because there's a market for gas to sell.
Yes.
Right? There has to be a market for it.
There's only prostitution because there's only prostitution you make money off of.
Exactly. There's a market for sex.
Profession in the world.
Yep. There's a market for sex.
I mean, when y'all were talking a minute ago about, like the lack of privacy on the internet, like the data, for example, like you're on Podbean or on Facebook where they are recording this audio file or video file, or like people who are engaging in the chat. That data is a big sell. It makes a lot of money.
Yeah. And
it also lets them know who to contact if you talk about the certain things that they don't want you to have or you to know. They'll come by your house and talk to you, or drag you off and talk to you somewhere else.
For crimes to happen, there has to be a market for the crimes, right? Like with drugs. Do you think drugs would be a big deal if there was a market for it? No. If no one ever took drugs, there would be no drugs to sell. No one would buy them.
Exactly.
Right? If
no one been going on since the 60s and ain't been cured yet.
Exactly. Well, it's been going longer than that. Drugs are a history of the fucking human race, right? They've been chewing on cocoa leaves.
They started drug war in the our government started the drug war in the 60s.
Yeah.
And they haven't even came to a win, lose, or draw decision yet. They say, well, we're still working on it. We're still working on it. But they don't do anything to do any amount of damage other than take a few, take on low level and every now and then some high levels off that are in their way. Because they have the market. Their government has the market on the goddamn drug industries, legal and illegal. If you don't believe me, look at Afghanistan. You're not supposed to go across the goddamn poppy fields. If they have such a bad problem with heroin, why don't we burn the damn things?
Mhm.
No, you can't do that. Those people lose their livelihood. Well, who's buying it from them? The government.
Do you think if
And
Russia,
governments around the world.
let me ask you this. If Russia killed 96,000 Americans, what do you think we would do to them? We'd fucking light their ass up, right?
I don't know. It depends on who's in office.
But I'm just saying, in general,
And
we would
and the
light them
makeup of
up.
Congress too.
Yeah, but in general, if they killed 96,000 Americans, I'm talking just shot them. If they just shot 96,000 Americans, or dropped a bomb, a nuclear bomb, and killed 96,000 Americans, we would fucking light them up. All right, but the drug runners in Mexico kill 96,000 Americans every year by trafficking drugs into the U.S. Yeah. We don't do a damn thing. We don't even tax the drugs that are being sold.
That's because, Mike, our government is doing it to us. They allow that shit to get across.
Yeah.
They can secure that damn border if it got off their thumb and said, okay, let's close the border and only people who are authorized to come across the border can come across. But no, we have mules hauling mule people, I'll put that, people who cross the fences where the damn border wall ain't at, or climb through the mountains where the border wall ain't at, and bring that stuff in here. 2 years ago, they brought in enough fentanyl to kill 100 million people. 100 million. That's a third of our population. Where the hell did the damn fentanyl go? Did they burn it all? No. It got out. I mean, I don't care about damn marijuana. I mean, nobody ever overdosed on marijuana, but heroin, goddamn ecstasy, and all these other drugs, these synthetics and opiates and stuff. Yeah, that destroys not just lives, it also destroys families, because there's a lot of families who do it as a family project. You know, and we don't do anything to protect the people here in the United States. And I say we, I'm saying our government, who's supposed to be working for us. Because we have excess taxation without representation. We have no protection against the illicit stuff. We have no protection against corrupt governments locally and state, unless you have somebody who's standing up for you. Other than that, we're out here by ourselves. And they don't want you to be out there by yourself. They want to be able to control every movement you have. They hate off-gridders. They hate preppers, because they know that when shit hits the fan, these people ain't going to be coming down to the food line and getting a jab in the arm for shit.
Yeah. Marco says, you know, like he said, take Argentina, for example. No one knows about the Chinese base in the extreme south of the country. Here's the other thing a lot of people don't know is that Trudeau set up military exercises in Canada with the Chinese military.
Yeah,
now, what kind of
2 years now?
What kind of stupid shit does that? What is that?
We also have 177,000 of them in south of the border too, Mike.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Nobody's saying a damn word about that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not in the narrative, and that's all it's about. If you're not talking in their narrative, they're not going to let it out.
I don't understand. Is Woody Bush still in here? How did Trudeau set up military exercises in Canada with the Chinese? How?
Because the Rothschilds control his bank account and told him to let him in there to make the overthrow for the goddamn world.
Look, fuck the Rothschilds, okay? Because the people don't fucking care about the Rothschilds. The Canadian citizens don't give a fuck about the Rothschilds. I don't give a fuck what the Rothschilds did. How do they allow it?
They want the New World Order.
The people don't.
They want to impose a New World Order and trim 90% of the population off the face of the earth.
But the people in Canada don't. Half of them don't. That's why they just went and protested all that shit.
Yeah, but they don't have weapons up there, Mike. They can't fight.
Yeah, well.
We have 3/4 of the small arms in the world belong to civilians here in the United States.
Okay, I'll give you a better one.
We have the technologies
I'll give you a
You
better
have
one
the
then.
technologies. People say bomb the airfields, and they can't get their planes up to fight against us. Hell no! Don't bomb the airfields. Take the veteran pilots over there and commandeer the airplanes. Send them up with us in them, and we can take it.
What?
See, nobody looks at that shit.
Well, the other thing is, okay, I'll give you a better one. Maybe the Canadian people can't fight, but we can. Why the fuck would our government allow that? Like, how is that not a major breach of a ally? You know, allowing them to train the enemy on our soil.
Look who we got to make the damn decision, Mike.
Yeah.
We got Cocaine Mitch and Drunk Pelosi and Potato Head.
I don't think Mitch is on cocaine. He's not hyper enough.
No, he was a cocaine trafficker.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that.
Yeah. It's already been shown out that he was in the cocaine war. Okay?
But so we're about to get cut
we have
off.
corrupt individuals who control our movement right now and tell the military, here, you go over here and we're going to put you in the war and you all can do what you're trained to do. However, laws were set up that they can't do that here in the United States unless there's a certain kind of an instance, like a revolution.
So we're about to get cut off. Good conversation. I appreciate you, Raccoon and Eric, chiming in and everyone else listening. Remember, go subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Great.
You good?
Great chat interaction tonight, too, I must say. But I know you'll be doing this again, hopefully next Monday, next Tuesday, and next Thursday, and plus impromptu shows at other times. And then let's see you around at some of our other friend shows in the meantime.